Good evening. My name is Paul Cox. I serve as chairman of Seacology, the world's premier not-for-profit organization focused on protecting precious island habitats and cultures. I welcome you tonight to our 31st year of awarding the Seacology Prize, which recognizes an Indigenous islander who has performed heroic acts in protecting their environment and their culture. We're delighted to have you with us today, and I think you're going to find this to be a very fascinating program that's going to take you to the South Seas. But I don't want to steal any thunder from our executive director, the amazing Dwayne Silverstein. So I'll turn the time over to Dwayne Silverstein.
Thank you, Paul, and I'd like to add my welcome to everybody watching to the 2022 Seacology Prize ceremony. And as is traditional, we begin with a brief review of our progress in the last year, and there has been a lot. We now have 386 projects in 68 countries, and we do that with only 8 full-time staff people, and we are very proud of what we do, so let me start talking about that right now. First, I'll begin with major initiatives, of which we have 3 this year. The first takes place in the Cook Islands. The Cook Islands had the wisdom to start Mare Moana, which means in English sacred ocean, which is the world's largest multi-use marine park. At 800,000 square miles, it is approximately the size of Mexico. We know from experience, however, marine parks and marine reserves only work if they have the support of the local people. So we have provided major funding for a big public education outreach program for Mare Moana. And there are some of the beautiful hard corals you could find in the waters of the Cook Islands. And when I say public education, I don't mean dry, boring school lessons, though there are some school presentations as well, not boring ones though, but very clever alternatives. The Cook Islands has a very large breakwater that frankly has been an eyesore since it was constructed many, many years ago. And as part of this program, it is being painted with themes of Mare Moana, representing each of the 15 Cook Islands. So there's a shot of some of that has been done to date. And there's a shot illustrating the location. Rarotonga, the main island of the Cook Islands, is circular. So sooner or later, everybody passes by this particular point. But it is also this breakwater right near the airport. So tourists visit right after getting off the plane. So it's a really great way to increase the knowledge about Mare Moana. Other thing we've done is we had a polo shirt contest. And instead of going to some professional designers, we went to the students to design one, and a winner was picked. And those shirts are now available. Another clever way to get the word out about the importance of Mare Moana. That tall student in the back row, the second from left, is in fact not a student. It is Kevin Iro, who is our 2022 Seacology Prize recipient. And you'll hear more about him a little later on in the ceremony. Another big initiative we've launched this year is protecting seagrass throughout the world. A little over 10 years ago, Seacology launched a similar initiative with mangroves. And at that time, mangroves, which played a very important role in sequestering carbon and thus fighting global warming, were pretty much unknown throughout the world. Their importance was unknown and disregarded. We would like to think that Seacology's many mangrove initiatives played an important role in bringing protection of mangroves to the attention of the world, and we're trying to do the same with seagrass. Seagrass plays an important role as well in sequestering carbon. It also serves as a nursery for baby fish and other sea life. It binds the sand together, the ground together right outside of shores throughout the world, and has many other important roles, but it is acutely threatened. We've lost well over 50% of all the world's seagrass in the last 100 years, and is still rapidly disappearing. So we decided to launch a whole bunch of initiatives throughout the world to protect seagrass. One of them takes place in the northern Cyclades Islands of Greece. And this is a multi-pronged public outreach and education program aimed at kids, aimed at local residents, and aimed at tourists, particularly boat captains, because dropping anchor on top of seagrass is the quickest way to destroy them. Another project we have takes place in the Mactan and Olango Islands in the Philippines. And there we did some very sophisticated mapping and came up with an app to show exactly where the seagrass is, so that boat captains can just move their ship another few meters one way or the other, and therefore avoid dropping anchors on seagrass. This project had an excellent unintended benefit in that the local municipalities are using the research, the maps that we came up with, to design and implement policies protecting seagrass. Moving now to the Isle of Wight in the United Kingdom. There is a large seagrass bed that is being destroyed by, again, dropping of anchors. So what Seacology is doing here is helping install environmental friendly advanced mooring systems, as well as outreach to the community about the importance of seagrass. Back in our own country, the United States, up in Westcott Bay off of Washington State, we're working with a local marine biologist in reseeding 6 acres of eelgrass, which is a type of seagrass. Now, when the eelgrass disappears, and it greatly has disappeared, it affects the whole food chain. And believe it or not, scientists now think the disappearance of the seagrass there has led to a great reduction in the number of orcas living in that area. And now I'd like to turn things over to Karen Peterson, our Manager of Special Initiatives, to talk about our initiative in the Dominican Republic. Karen?
Thanks, Dwayne. On to the Dominican Republic National Mangrove Initiative. This is our current countrywide project that is an awareness-raising campaign. It also involves local ecotourism and mangrove conservation projects and encourages other livelihoods that depend on the good health of the DR's mangroves. There's also a youth sports program, the Play for the Mangroves initiative, which is going really well, and there's a lot of enthusiasm with the kids that have participated thus far. Now that things are somewhat back to normal, there's been a number of in-person events with children, also with adults, but with children and youth of all ages. There's also been a number of meetings with like-minded organizations and academic institutes and governmental entities that are all concerned with mangrove conservation in the DR. So there's really a lot going on. World Mangrove Month was in July, and there were a number of activities surrounding that. And the Play for the Mangroves program is going very nicely. It involves both baseball and volleyball, because volleyball is so popular among girls in the DR. So these are programs where kids get to practice and interact, but they also get to learn about mangroves, perform activities such as replanting, trash pickup, etc. And in return, they get uniforms and also some sports equipment, such as volleyball nets, volleyballs, baseballs, baseball bats, etc. Boca Chica is one of the locally based conservation and livelihood programs, and this had a bit of a change because it was found that what was really needed in this area was some new kinds of mangrove replanting and habitat restoration that would really help prevent this section of vulnerable beach against extreme weather events. Because if you look at this little protected area, it's incredibly intact, but if you go even a few steps down the beach, you can see how much erosion has threatened the businesses and housing and infrastructure of the Boca Chica area. And this is important because Boca Chica is basically Santo Domingo's beach. It's where everyone goes to escape the city and recreate. So this is a project that also involves local fishermen who are involved in some of the tours. The fishermen are also helping with the green breakwater system, which is this system that is going to be more robust against the rising sea levels and the storm events in this area. In El Astillero, this project is wrapping up. This is a small area of mangroves, but it's within a larger area that's very important. So this is really a youth-based program. There's a outdoor coastal classroom. There's been a bunch of community education activities, media campaign. You can see here kids planting mangroves. And in El Tablon, this one's also wrapping up. This is a larger area, 66 acres. And this project has been really interesting and successful because it's involved the production of mangrove honey, which is going to be marketed locally. Also, it's involving the Fishermen's Co-op in a lot of the mangrove restoration activities because their fish catches are very dependent on the mangroves and the associated ecosystems for the health of the fish. So this was a really interesting project in a very unique area that otherwise has a lot of pressures. So it's an important area to protect. And we'll go on to the 2022 project highlights. First, we'll go to Mantondoni Village in Kenya. This one as well is wrapping up. It's pretty amazing how many projects are being concluded this year, given all the challenges. So this one is a large mangrove area, and the original project was for a water cistern. But again, sometimes you have to just change plans and figure out what the best thing for the community is in concert with what their current needs are. So the best thing really in support of this mangrove forest was an office for the beach management unit, which is in charge of overseeing the conservation of the area. This office is almost completed, and they also have an area for women's meetings and for children's activities. This is also a beekeeping project. They've involved kids in a lot of the mangrove replanting activities and done a lot of environmental education. And they've also heavily involved the women of the community in the mangrove restoration and education component. And now I'll turn it over to our program manager, Mary Randolph, who will take us through the rest of the slides.
Thank you, Karen. The first project I want to talk about is in Madagascar. And really, anytime Seacology finds a good project in Madagascar, it's a great opportunity. Most of the plants and animals on the island of Madagascar don't occur anywhere else in the world, and a lot of them are endangered. So if they're lost there, they're lost from everywhere in the world forever. This project is in a southern forest on the island called the Sandus Forest, and it alone has 4 endangered species of lemurs. There's a bunch of other endangered animals, including a gecko, a tree, a frog, and I'm sure lots more. There's a good possibility, unfortunately, that a lot of species in this forest could be extinct before they're even described by scientists. So ecologically, it's really important. What this project is doing is reconnecting patches of forest that have become fragmented. And so that, of course, leads to extinction. The animals don't have as much area to live in, to forage in. So this is a really simple project. It's really effective. Local people are planting trees to make corridors between these fragments of forest. The trees are fast growing and they create the right conditions for more native plants to come back. There's also fire breaks along the corridors, and those are really important. This is a very dry area, and wildfires are a constant danger. And because most of the people are really poor in this region, they're subsistence farmers, fires are incredibly dangerous to them and harmful to the farmers and their families. So it's a good cooperative project where the local people have come to make these fire breaks and the corridors. The animals are already using the corridors. There's good results right away. And they're also using a Seacology grant for education for local people about fire management and ecology in general. And also we're supplying some basic firefighting equipment. And you can see that the people here are working on the fire breaks and the corridors. Really, everyone pitched in. They're very happy to have this project, and we think it's going to be really successful. The next project is on an island up in Lake Titicaca, high up in the Andes of Peru. This little island is not much of a tourist island. It's mostly agricultural, but they get some visitors, and the people here really wanted to restore the island. It's an amazing area of biodiversity. Again, you can imagine that in an isolated region like this, there's some really interesting species that have evolved. There's a frog in this lake that gets up to 2 feet long. There's a flightless grebe, a little duck that doesn't exist anywhere else. But the lake, like everywhere else, is under a lot of pressure these days. And on Amintani Island, some poor farming practices over the years had led to damage, both in the land and the water. There'd been erosion and pesticide runoff. So the community got together and they really decided to promote organic agriculture, sustainable agriculture. And they restored some of the terraces. It's a hilly island. They restored some of the fields and terraces now, and they're using them. They have restored a stone path around the island for visitors to use. And they also built an interpretive center that's just beautiful. And it's got a lot of information, not only about the biology and ecology, but about the cultural history of the island. There are sacred spots on the island. And so this gives a lot of information both to kids on the island who are growing up there and also visitors. And now on the stone path that goes around the island, at the very highest spot, there's visitors are invited to take a stone and put it on a pile and make a wish. And there's the group at this is the inauguration of the center. In the other side of the world, in the Central Pacific, in Micronesia, is Chol Village. It's on the island of Palau, the country of Palau. It's on the very northern tip of the main island, Babeldab. And this project is restoring a mangrove area, or giving it more protection, really. It was already had some protection, but there was some fishing there and some tree cutting. And now the area is going to be incorporated into Palau's protected area network. And that will bring additional protections. There won't be any tree cutting allowed, only some subsistence fishing. And of course, mangroves, as you probably know, are really important ecosystems. They protect communities from damage from wind and waves, erosion. They are huge carbon sinks because when mangrove trees decay, all that organic matter goes under the water and it doesn't decompose, so it traps that carbon for a very long period of time. They're also just really valuable ecosystems in terms of wildlife. They're a nursery for reef fish, and there's all kinds of animals that live there too, crabs, crocodiles, lots of different kinds of birds. So they're important on a number of levels, and this will bring enhanced protection. What the community wanted to do with the Seacology grant was to repair the stone pier, their village, which is on the coast here. And it's an old, long stone pier, and it was structurally sound, but because of sea level rise, it needed to be added to, it needed to be raised. So it's a tremendous amount of work, but everyone in the village has pitched in, and they've already made a lot of good progress. And you can see that it was kind of a big deal there. This was some local coverage. It really makes a difference to these villages, and they're grateful and they're happy that they can be supported in protecting their resources, which is, of course, what we want to do. The last project I'll tell you about is in Indonesia. It's in the Bird's Head region of Papua Island, which is in the far eastern part of Indonesia. And it has some of the most stunning biodiversity in the world. Any marine area in the world, it's kind of amazing. This project focuses on marine turtles. Now, near this village, different kinds of turtles nest, but it's especially important for the gigantic Pacific leatherback turtles. There's a beach here that is the most important beach in the world for this endangered West Pacific leatherback, because 2 separate populations of the turtles nest there at different times every year. And on paper, it's protected, but really the protection depends on the local people. So we're working with 2 communities here, and the people are patrolling the beach every day during nesting season to protect the turtles and eggs from predators and from poachers. So it's a great protection for these amazing endangered creatures. The people in the villages told our project partners that what was most important to them was education for their children. That was the greatest need that these villages had. So they're using a Seacology grant for computers and for classroom and for education. So the kids are getting both computer education and also hands-on environmental education. And we found through a lot of different projects that getting the kids on board with conservation is really essential to long-term success. They often bring their parents along with them. So we're excited about this project, and we hope that, like a lot of Seacology projects, it will have long-term benefits both for the environment and for the communities. Okay, I'm going to turn it back to Dwayne now. Thank you.
I would like to thank 4 groups of people who make all this work that you've just seen and a lot more possible. One is, of course, our donors. So thank you very much. We could not do this without your support. The second is our fantastic board of directors who give their time, treasure, and talent to Seacology. The third is our incredible and wonderful staff. We have a staff of only 8 people for launching 380 projects around the world. Truly incredible. And last but not least is our field representatives. These are our eyes and ears, our heart and soul, if you will, of Seacology. They're the ones who identify and monitor projects throughout the world. They all work part-time, but they do incredible work. I know many of them are watching this ceremony, so my sincere thanks to all of you. And now it's my pleasure and honor to introduce the co-founder of Seacology, the person who underwrites the Seacology Prize every year, Ken Murdoch.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us to honor the recipient of the 2022 Seacology Prize, Kevin E. Rowe. Unfortunately, we can't come together in person to celebrate our prize recipient this year, but this virtual gathering is still very special. This is the 31st consecutive year that Seacology has singled out an exceptional island conservationist to receive the Seacology Prize. Over the years, we have honored islanders from 20 countries around the globe. Each of these extraordinary conservation leaders has a unique story. Some led campaigns to stop development that would have spelled disaster for their islands, and some devoted their lives to education, spreading the word about the critical importance of mangrove forests or wetlands. Although their stories are each different, each one is a tale of persistence, risk, and hope. Each prize recipient has challenged the status quo, but none of them had a nickname like tonight's recipient, Kevin E. Rowe, who for years was known as the Beast. That was during his long and successful career as a professional rugby player. After we retired, he returned home to the Cook Islands and there quickly saw that the coral reefs weren't as vibrant and healthy as they had been when he was a child. The decline was affecting traditional fishing, tourism, and island culture. In 2009, Kevin went public with his concerns, and he urged a daring solution: set aside all of the country's lagoons and ocean as a huge marine park. Such advocacy from an athlete was very unusual, and not everyone welcomed it either. But Kevin persisted, and with patience and determination, he won the people over. In 2017, with broad support, the Cook Islands created the Marai Moana Marine Park, a marine sanctuary the size of the country of Mexico. Like our recipient tonight, I too feel a special connection with the South Pacific. Several of my ancestors lived in the South Pacific and came to care deeply about its people, islands, and its environment. I was also lucky enough to live in that beautiful region and to fall in love with it. I am honored to underwrite the Seacology Prize in memory of my mother, Lalavi Fish Murdoch. Tonight, Seacology is pleased to award the 2022 Seacology Prize to Kevin E. Rowe for his innovative ideas and hard work in protecting the unique environment of the Cook Islands. Now, please sit back and enjoy a short video Introducing Kevin.
Oh, the beast? He played all over the world. Had quite a name for himself.
And that's why they call Kevin Nairo the Beast.
He could have retired wherever he wanted. If you had asked me if he would come back here someday, I'd say no way. But he did.
Well, mate, set the emotions aside now. You've got to start focusing in. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
90% of our population don't live in the Cook Islands. Cook Islanders like to spread their wings and try things, and you know, hopefully a lot of them do return at some point.
People say, what do you want to be remembered by? What did you do to help the world? Well, be an islander in none other than Rarotonga. Coach his son's team.
Go for Charlie. 2.
Raise a family. Come on, guys. That is special enough. But there's more. I think he started to hear the ancestors waking from their graves, shaking the grounds that we walk on. All the way down to the ocean floor.
Can you imagine our ancestors when they came across the ocean, you know, miles and miles, and then all of a sudden seeing a little dot, how you'd see these peaks as you got closer, volcanic peaks, and you'd be wondering to yourself, is anyone there yet, or are we the first guys there? Would have been so awesome, eh? Because that's what our ancestors did. Sailed these oceans and settled all the islands in the Pacific.
How long ago?
Over 1,000 years ago. And they would have had such resilience, never give up. And so that's why we are like we are today as Cook Islanders. But back in the day, when I was your age, you could virtually spearfish just at the edge there, because there'd be just heaps of fish just swimming around. You wouldn't worry about the small ones. When I used to go out fishing for tuna and that, oh my goodness, just so many fish. It's unbelievable, and you see dolphins and everything jumping around, and the coral was all alive, just blues, greens, yellows, just so many colors.
What happened? Why did all the coral die?
Things changed. The waves started getting into the ocean. The reefs started disappearing. Those fish stopped biting. All caught by the big outfits from other countries.
Now, sometimes you can go out for days and days and not catch anything.
And our people were leaving to seek out opportunities and leasing our lands to foreigners.
Our people see boats at night. Right now, resources are being extracted from our waters.
Even when I came back, I never thought about the deep ocean. I was concerned about the lagoons, but as I researched and read more, I thought to myself, well,
right.
you know, our oceans actually, that is the lifeblood.
Yeah.
You know, and our ancestors sailed those oceans, and they have so much of a great understanding of what the ocean meant to them.
And now it's just blue because we're so focused on, you know, our lambs, because it's so valuable and so scarce.
That's it. We have always taken for granted that the waters is okay. That's our water, that's our ocean. But everything is not heavenly paradise out there. You know, it's not. And we've got to do something about it.
I think the fish is a bit shy this morning.
They saw the cameras coming. We see the whole ocean that our forefathers sailed and navigated as, you know, sacred. So if we can all as Cook Islanders think about protecting all of the ocean and not just locking off certain areas, not just our lagoons, not just all that we can see, but everything that's out there, I think we're going to be better off than most other places.
Kevin pushed the idea of an enormous marine park, an area the size of Mexico. That's Maraimwana, our sacred ocean. I said, come on, Kevin, you can't be serious. I don't know if you have met Kevin before, but this man get that serious look into his eyes. That's the beast. Maybe at rugby that he's been playing knocked him a good one.
And again, Ido's away now. And Ido this time will take Gary Spencer on.
Because then
Just absolutely run through Gary Spencer. And Kevin Ido's decided he wants to play football now. It's taken 67 minutes.
I can't forget this. The Uyeriki kept saying, he's a rugby player. What is it that he knows about our ocean?
Science tells us that we probably only know of 10% of all ocean creatures. With our particular ocean in Maraimwana, we have some very deep waters up to 6 kilometres deep. So there could be species down there, ecosystems that we've never seen before, and we need to find out ourselves what is out there.
Kevin got the local people in his corner.
You know my biggest fear, the traditional leaders, if we don't do anything about it, will be gradually be pushed aside, and companies will be coming in, the government will be coming in, transforming the EEZ into the Maraimwana.
I think it's a good idea to keep all the commercial fishing boats out, away.
And if they can do it before I dive, I'll be happy.
The more you got our people to be involved, the more they realize that he is genuine.
He got the Prime Minister in his corner, Henry Puna.
Just after I was sworn in as Prime Minister, Kevin Iro came to see me with this idea, which I thought was crazy at the time, of having our whole EEZ of nearly 2 million square kilometers declared as a marine protected area. And the more we talked about it, the more I liked it. When I took the legislation to Parliament,
distinguished representatives,
there was not a single opposition to the legislation.
caring for the ocean and its resources as not just our moral duty, we also see it as our obligation under international law.
Maraimwana finally happened in 2017. It prohibits commercial fishing and mining within 15 nautical miles of each of our 15 islands. One of the most significant achievements in all of the Pacific.
And I think that's a wonderful, wonderful example for the world.
Without Henry,
they showed
none of this will happen.
Total commitment.
But without the beast, none of this will happen either.
You look around now, you hardly see lights at night. Thanks to you. Thanks to you, Kevin.
It's not finished,
It's not finished.
Hopefully by the time we're not around, our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren know so much about the ocean, just like our ancestors. Exactly. We're one with the ocean again,
It might have taken nearly a decade. It's Cook Island history now. My grandchildren learned about the Maraimwana Act passed in 2017 in their schools.
The boat stopped coming
How
in
about
with all
that?
the food. How would we live?
And someday there will be ancient history
of the land and of the ocean. Just because you're from this tiny little island doesn't mean that you can't achieve, your ultimate dream.
It doesn't take a scientific expert to make something like this happen. It takes a heart of gold.
As long as you put the hard work in, dedicate yourself, it can be done, And that's for anything. That doesn't, not necessarily for rugby or anything else, it's for anything in life.
All this, some say this is a creation of the universal proportion, or the gods of your choosing. Yet in a way, It's a creation of one man, flesh and blood, who lives on this earth today. And the same is true of all the sacred places of the world. It all depends on how you look at it.
For outstanding island environmental achievement, the 2022 Seacology Prize is awarded to Kevin Hero from the Cook Islands.
I leave it all. I say for you, you leave it all. Ooh, my acres of land I have achieved. It may be hard for you to step and believe, but
I would like to offer my congratulations to Kevin Ero on his selection as the recipient of the 2022 Seacology Prize. Now we will go to the Cook Islands to hear from our honored prize recipient, Kevin Ero.
Kia orana. I'd like to thank Seacology and your team in the US, Dwayne, for this award. I don't want to accept this award just on behalf of myself, but also to the many organizations and individuals who helped put together the Marae Moana initiative. In particular, I'd like to thank our former Prime Minister, Henry Puna, who without him, there would be no Marae Moana. I'd also like to acknowledge the House of Chiefs, or our House of Ariki, and its president, To'u Ariki, who went out into the communities and really helped drive the awareness campaign for Marae Moana all those years ago. I'd also like to thank my family for their support, and I'd like to acknowledge our ancestors who sailed this great ocean and settled our islands and taught us so much. So on behalf of myself, the people of the Cook Islands, thank you very much. Kia orana e kia manuia.
Many thanks to Kevin Ero for such a touching discussion of his efforts to protect the environment and cultures of the Cook Islands. You know, as a professional athlete, he was faced with serious competition, but after retiring from professional athletics, he's now became a leading voice for conservation in the island Pacific. At Seacology, we partner with village leaders around the world, and that's allowed us to create 386 different projects, building schools, medical clinics, solar electrification schemes, water supplies, in return for the villagers protecting their precious rainforests and coral reefs. This is a robust solution that's been worked in 68 different countries of the world. But what Kevin Ero did, which I find so amazing, is yes, he partnered with a villager, happened to be the Prime Minister of the Cook Islands. And that's led to the creation of a marine preserve that is equal to the size of Mexico. What a remarkable achievement, and how grateful we are to Kevin Ero and his colleagues for showing the way how we can have global impacts. Seacology is a small organization, but we have very tangible results in establishing preserves around the world. And this is because of generosity from folks like you. We're so deeply grateful for your support and for your gifts that make everything you see here possible. We're grateful to our industrial partners, but particularly thank those of you who take the time to send in your gifts. Here at Seacology, we keep a very small staff. All of board members are volunteers. That allows your gift to have maximum impact in trying to protect the world. So thanks, everybody. What a lovely evening. This will conclude our Seacology Prize ceremony. Thanks to Dwayne Silverstein, our marvelous staff. And again, congratulations to Kevin Ero for becoming our newest Seacology Prize winner. Thanks everybody for joining with me.